Hey guys, so I'm Elisha Hirsch, and as some of you may know, I am the face to the channel of Backroad Hobbies. And today's video is going to be different. And today I'll be telling you my story. Now, I need to preface this by saying that my story is no better or worse than yours, or the difficulties I endured were any harder or easier than yours. I'm making my story known to others who may be going through the same thing, through the same struggles, or something that is similar, for them to know that there is still light at the end of the tunnel and that there is still hope. Now, I will be highlighting my grade school years and starting at the tail end of my high school years, where it officially starts, and for the most part, where the brunt of everything starts. There will be things that will be left out in this video due to time and just simply there being a lot of personal information that just does not need to be known. So let's begin. As a child, birth to 10 years old, or actually just simply as a child throughout my lifespan with my family, with my parents, I've been raised in a Christian home, which was during the 90s and early thousands. I had attended church as often as I possibly could, which included different camps throughout the summer and a slightly different version of what most people would know as the Boy Scouts, which for us at that time was the Royal Rangers. Then I had been so on fire for God and everything, for Christianity and everything of that sorts. And then I started questioning things as I started getting older and started just whatever the case may be. But these questions I just could not get answered, and to where it was satisfactory to me. And these questions were along the lines of, if God created the universe, who created God? And if God is all good and powerful, then why is there so much evil and struggling in the world? I had asked these questions and many others to people who were within the church, and I believe I had actually asked my parents a few times. I don't remember exactly what was said, but it was not satisfactory to being able to understand these. Now, when high school came along, I had become pretty distant with God and really started to fumble around and start just distancing myself from Christianity in general. So this era, this streak, I had started jumping into different things. I started chewing tobacco young, started drinking young, started working young as well, be able to start affording this kind of stuff, start drinking and whatnot. I had really started to chasing the opportunities to go to different parties, drinking parties, and so on. I started chasing this stuff to help try to fill this void that I started developing. Around my junior year in high school, I had met my now wife, and we had struck it off near immediately. We were both kind of introverts. I had some kind of resemblance of peace at that time, because I had something that seemed to be pretty steady. At this point in my life, I had been pretty stressed. It's been, for me at that time, was pretty stressful, because it was expected of me to get as good of grades as possible, to work, and eventually go to college. It was pressured into me to get these things done and to be able to get these things achieved, to give myself some kind of worth in this world. Now, at this point in my life, so now between my junior year and a year out of high school, I had started picking up smoking pot, marijuana, and to try to help dull the stress of it, and also try to, I guess you can say, self-medicate, to try to get myself to start being able to sleep comfortably at least once or twice a week. And at this time, I'd also been accepted into Wichita State University to go through their engineering course there, the 4-year course, and it didn't quite go as planned. We had found out that my girlfriend at the time, was pregnant with our son. She was 17 at the time, and I was 18. Now, even with everything that was going on, we still, obviously, as you may have seen on the channel, we obviously had kept him. We didn't get an abortion or anything, and I had still, because of this, I had the decision, I had still had the moral background, the moral foundation of Christianity, point of being pro-life in this manner. It took me a while to get to this point to that point, but I had decided to, I was forced into the situation of leave and go to the school or stay at home and work and start supporting, because at that point in time I didn't see that there was the option of still continuing on with going to the college and everything. Now, whenever this had happened, Ashley and I had actually started growing a lot stronger together, but it still had put a strain between us and not her parents and my parents to some degree between us, because of how young we were, and it was still viewed that we were screwing up our lives, in a manner of speaking. Now, back in 2012, early 2012, if you're watching this, actually January 4th, we wound up eloping down in Miami, Oklahoma, and at that point, it was where it had really started going forward for us in the manner of starting the family, because she wound up moving in with us, and us as in myself and my parents, because of course, just months out of high school, I was still with my parents at that time. Whenever we found out about this, I started working 2 separate jobs. I was working anywhere from 12 to 16-hour days, sometimes even longer, depending on what was going on. We wound up being able to break away from doing so much working time, because I had done that for some time, and wound up breaking away from that. I did wind up getting enrolled into Pittsburg State University to get my associate's degree in electrical technology there, and actually I still wound up graduating high school as well. And we had also moved to Pittsburgh and officially started our time as a family on our own. Now, also in this time frame, junior year to a year out of high school, my parents had also divorced in this time frame, and that had also put a major strain on myself mentally, because I was basing a lot of things off of that foundation of my parents, the mentality, and being able to structure my family off of what my family was. And whenever this happened, I didn't know what was true and how I should be going about anything at this point. And I was at the point of trying to figure out what was right and what was wrong. Now, whenever I had started there at Pittsburg State, I had also been working 40 plus hours a week, and I did that throughout the college term, the 2-year associates, and I'd also continue on with that job until a year out of college. And for some time, things were kind of looking up, until I had even decided to go ahead and drop smoking pot and marijuana, and it was primarily because it was due to the job that I was in had required people to not smoke pot, and they had also performed randoms. Things I started struggling out a bit more. I had injured my rotator cuff in my right shoulder outside of work, and I wound up having to go down for surgery because it really started affecting me in several different aspects. And I was out of work for about 6 months, and actually I had wound up picking up a job to start helping with everything, but we still had to move back to Parsons with my mom because we just weren't going to be able to stay in a house at that point in time. Now, while Ashley was working, I was of course stay-at-home dad, watching our son and taking care of him, taking care of stuff around the house, and our roles were reversed for this duration up until I had recovered. In this time frame, since we had a little bit extra time, we had also started in rebuilding the relationships between our parents. Now, whenever I had fully recovered and was able to get back to work, I didn't have anywhere local to live there in Pittsburgh, because I was put on FMLA. Some of you guys may know what FMLA is. I was put on to that. That way my job was secured. But whenever I started back in, I didn't per se have a place to live locally. So I wound up having to live out of my truck. And Ashley and John had to jump around between parents. This was a real struggle for us because I was getting paid not much better than minimum wage. I was away from them for several weeks at a time. Wasn't able to build up money like I had wanted because it cost a lot to travel the distance in a vehicle that didn't have very good gas mileage. So I was burning up money and fuel because of it, and wasn't able to establish a place. Now, as the years went by, I had wound up jumping from job to job, and we had moved a handful of times throughout the southern part of Kansas, and things were rough here and there, and but for time's sake, I'll go ahead and just keep it to this point. And now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the main brunt of the video, which is the main part of my testimony. So soon after my daughter was born, I had developed a injury that is unknown on how I had wound up doing it. I had been pretty rough on myself throughout my life, and jobs I had over the years were labor jobs, so it's hard to determine whether or not it was job related or on personal time. So this injury was in my lower back, and it wound up being a torn disc, which was causing excruciating pain, and along with the scoliosis, a case of scoliosis in my lower back. I had worked with this injury for some time, and there were many restless nights and mornings where I could not get up out of bed to be able to go to work. And this had put a really major strain on, well, everything. Now, I had still been pretty determined to go to work and be able to support for my family, but I couldn't just simply get up. Well, I did manage to get up some days to be able to go to work, and well, I found a way to be able to go to work in some manner. And I wound up self-medicating on painkillers, with alcohol, anything to be able to dull the pain so I could still be able to go to work. And of course, over time, as it usually happens, things just stopped working and I was back to square one. In this time frame, because I had pretty well, like I said, it was pretty well distanced from going to church, Christianity, and all this stuff. And well, whenever we moved back into this area, my wife wound up taking herself and the kids to church every Sunday. Wound up going to church just about every Sunday, and I had attended services here and there, so I knew about the pastor, I knew of the pastor and everything, but I still didn't attend every weekend because I was still recovering, also on top of being pretty distant. Now, as the time went by, I had started falling into a depression type of state, and I knew that in my mind I couldn't let myself become homeless again. There was no way that I'd be able to afford the bills with not being able to go to work like that. And to me at that point it was clear, even though it really wasn't, that there was two options. It was either wind up medicating onto something even stronger than what I was on to help alleviate the pain, or go ahead and end it all for myself. And I somehow convinced myself to go ahead and end it all. I had even picked a day, time, and location to do just that, and we are actually in the general area of where I would have done it. Now, whenever I had planned it out, I had decided to go ahead and go on into work, go ahead and to help cover what I was doing, go ahead and go into work, go ahead and work throughout the day, and then over lunch I was called and talked to Ashley, and at that point I was going to tell her a lie about having to work late that evening. Go ahead and come out here and do it. But the thing was that throughout the morning, throughout the day, I had the Holy Spirit, which I found out later was the Holy Spirit moving through me, telling me to go talk to your pastor, go talk to the pastor of your wife's church. And I could not waver that whatsoever. I could not get it to leave, that feeling, that sensation to leave me. And eventually I succumbed to that, and I did manage to get a hold of the pastor at that time and was able to meet up with him that evening. Now, I did still to call Ashley let her know what was going on, but I did tell her that I was going to be meeting up with our pastor at that time, talk to him. Now, even up to the point of me pulling into the parking lot of the church, as I sat there, I had still thought about ending it, even in the parking lot. And I'm really glad I didn't. Now, whenever I went and talked to him, I managed to talk myself out of not doing it. Now, I didn't really talk myself. The Holy Spirit had really surged on me. And I wound up getting out of the truck and going and talking to him. And whenever he asked me how everything was going, I had completely broke down and told him everything. I had wound up telling him everything that had been going on and all the way up to this point. To sum it all up, at the end of it, he basically told me to go home, love up on my family, and read through Romans 8, and he had prompted me to go ahead and get all my medical things figured out, go ahead and get things going on this, on getting my back taken care of, which I wound up doing. He had also told me to go ahead and, like I said, read through Romans 8. And there was one deal that had really stuck out to me. And it's Romans 18 through 25. And it says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time is not worth comparing with the glory that is going to be revealed to us. For the creation eagerly awaits with anticipation for God's Son to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in the hope that the creation itself will also be set free from the bondage to decay into the glorious freedom of God's children. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together with labor pains until now. Not only that, but with ourselves who have the Spirit as the firstfruits, we also groan within ourselves, eagerly awaiting for adoption, for the redemption of our bodies. Now in this hope we were saved, but hope that is seen is not hope, because who hopes for what he sees? Now if we hope for what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with patience." Now, later on, just shortly after all this, I did wind up redevoting my life to Christ and had started delving into Christian apologetics, which is the defense of Christianity. And at that point, I had really started getting a lot of my questions answered from whenever I was a child and into my teenage years. And I now realize that a lot of this time I had been chasing to fill a void that I had it within my heart. Now, when all of these things didn't work, compounded with the physical issues that I had, I was at my breaking point. Now, the point is that you might be at your breaking point like I was, and you are still trying to look for a glimmer of hope. Regardless of what you are currently going through and what you had been through, just remember that there is always hope and peace through Christ.